Thank you. Now I invite architect Salila Vanka ma'am, assistant professor, and architect Archana Vikil ma'am, assistant professor from RV College of Architecture, Bangalore.
Okay, sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
Were you able to see my screen when I shared?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
but
yes,
now we
but
can't see.
now we can't actually.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
now we
hold on. Now tell me when if you can see it. Okay. Uh, now?
Uh, yeah, ma'am.
no.
You can see the screen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so you can see the screen.
Yes.
So first of all, good evening and big thanks to IUDI and KSSA for organizing this very important event. It's an important question, so I'm glad we are addressing it. And a big thanks to Professor Guru Prasanna also for inviting us to share our experiences in this on this forum. So yeah, as you know, it's about architectural design in an urban context, and this is the 8th semester AD Studio. And a big thanks to the two speakers before me because they have covered pretty much the phases that one goes through in the course of a studio such as this. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the whole process. Archana is going to dwell on that a bit. I'm just going to highlight a few snapshots from a studio that we did last year, 8th semester 2020. And the students had just finished their group work just as the lockdown started in March. So they were done with their field work and had gone out and collected data. So I've picked a few slides from there. So again, thanks to our students and my co-faculty, Deepak Ramadasan and Diya Banerjee, who were teaching with me that semester. And I wanted to highlight a few points that I think is extremely important in thinking about architectural design in an urban context, and because the thrust is on the urban here. And again, as Kalpesh also mentioned, the challenge of actually achieving some design by the end of it is what I think befuddles all of us, not just at an undergrad level, but even at a grad level. So the studio process, very briefly, the design brief becomes very important, of course, how we frame the question or what we are going to be looking at through that semester. I'm going to be talking a little more in detail about the background, that is understanding the context, because I think that is what is that's what sets apart this semester's work from the others. Though in every semester from the beginning, there's always an understanding, or there's always this inquiry into the context, because we hope that our architectural responses are responding to what's required around us. But here it is more overt, and it is something that one has to address very directly. And as Sandhya has also said earlier, this is something you cannot do sitting in a chair, but something that you actually have to go to the field and engage with. And finally, the studio outcome, of course, according to the VTU brief, is architectural design. And there's also beyond that, it's not just a building. It has to demonstrate an engagement with the public realm. So this was our brief for the 2020 studio. I'm not going to read all of it, but I think the one thing we've been doing at RV for the past 3-4 years is that's what I'm observing from since I've started teaching this studio 4 years back, is we consciously selected Bangalore as our study area, because there's always this thing where the students can go back several times in terms of data collection, which selecting another place might not. We don't have the luxury of going back to these other cities. So we thought we can just ease the process given the amount of work that's involved. And in the studio itself, and not only that, the other coursework, 8th semester tends to be extremely loaded in other courses as well. So just to make sure that what they do is meaningful, and is also, they can just go back whenever they need to. We have chosen Bangalore, and every semester, of course, it's been a different theme. So last semester we chose urban transformations, and here we chose two very well established neighborhoods or localities, Basavanagudi and Jayanagar. And they're,
Sorry,
yeah,
one sec. Salila,
yeah.
are you changing slides?
Are you not able to see them?
No, ma'am.
I am
Actually,
not able to see.
yeah,
Oh,
actually, the slides are not getting changed, I guess.
I'm so sorry. Let me try again. I'm more of a Zoom person, so I'm uh, just hold on. So should I be doing window or tab, Rupesh? What should I do on your
Uh,
end?
Ma'am, if you have opened it in Google's slides, then you can use the tab, otherwise use the window.
Okay, just let me do that then. I'm sorry. Thanks for bringing it to my notice. Uh,
First slide again, very briefly though,
how
please.
about now? Now, what are you seeing?
Yes, ma'am. We are seeing the slide of relating to urban social and design theory.
Okay, now
Yeah, now it is
moving,
exactly
right? Okay.
moving.
Sorry about that. So I was anyway at this third slide. I'll move a little faster. I think time is running out. So yeah, we picked Baswangudi and Jayanagar. And again, given the nature of the studio, the aim was to study the multiple layers, which include history, culture, society, economies, institutions, politics, planning, and architecture. Since it provides, as Kalpesh said, it's like more studying the fabric and the multiple layers that constitute that fabric. So the students, I think that's the most important key learning that the students take away from this particular semester. So there was, and there's obviously, we try to pick areas that can provide them a rich palette of these multiple layers. Has my slide moved now? Uh, it says understanding context, and these are the, Rupesh, are
Briefly,
you able
No,
to
no,
see?
no. We are at third slide, brief placemaking.
Okay, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Ma'am, go to presentation mode. Maybe it'll work.
Okay,
F5.
it is in presentation mode. It's stuck on this relating one. Can you see understanding
Yeah,
context now?
yeah,
now
yeah.
we can see this.
Okay, now then, are you able to see the next one?
No, we are still
See,
at
we
understanding
are still
context.
at the understanding context.
Okay, if now you're able to see understanding context, let me see if I just try this. How about now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I will not keep it in presentation mode then. If you don't mind, I'll
Okay,
share it
fine.
like
yes,
this.
ma'am, it's visible.
Yeah, so these are the reports. So what happened is, as I said, the students collected the data, and so after that lockdown started, so then they just collated the data, and we have something called the minor project and then the major project. So with in the minor project, they usually have a small insert, design and insert. So since time was running out, we said, why don't you guys prepare reports, very comprehensive reports of your studies, and that would count as your minor projects. So that's one small innovation there. So the students sat together and prepared fairly nice reports. These are the two covers, and those are the contents then. So I'll just, as I said, very briefly talk about a few layers which I thought are very important in thinking about AD in urban design or in an urban context. The first is, of course, these students in the past 2-3 years, urban design theory has been included as a core subject, and it's a very valuable subject because it gives a background. That's in the 7th semester. Archana and I taught it the first time, and then she's taken over. She teaches this subject every semester. And so we try to, at least in my, so Archana is presenting her studio that she headed. I'm talking about my studio here. So I'm going to talk about my process. So I try to get the students to think about or relate to all that theory, because some of it, whether it applies or not, so they need to at least think about it. And obviously that theory is coming off of practice and observations by these theorists. So there's an active effort to get them to, think about whether there is some connection with what they studied and in theory, and whether they see some of that on the ground. Then, of course, there's, as Sandhya also mentioned, and Kalpesh, there's a discrepancy between reality and what's normative and what is actually happening on the ground. So therefore, at this scale, they'll have to look at policy, plans, and visions. So, and then and not just as data, I think that's a very important thing which students and sometimes we also lose track of. We collect data, but then that's not enough, right? It's about how, what analysis you do with it, and how are you using that data, what inferences, and that inferences is what that we are interested in, because that's what's going to inform our design decisions. So it's to compare, question, and critique when you select data at this scale. and a little bit of the market dynamics. We don't get too much into the economics of it all, but in thinking of what regulations might say, but then what the reality is, in thinking of something like FAR, for instance. Architectural styles, that's something that we encourage the students to look at, because obviously there's obviously a lot of, and since we were talking about transformations, it became doubly important to see how these neighborhoods were transforming, and obviously they have a very long history, and so what earlier styles existed and what we have today, and then what the materiality, the history, the culture, the localness, and the socioeconomics, how do they all drive the built form then? And then intersections and interactions of the public and the private realm. So I put in this slide especially because this also becomes a semester where the students have been exposed to various methods of representing data. So it gives them we give them free rein, they can just go ahead and explore whichever method that they wish to choose. Present data and their inferences. For instance, this graph talks about how much porosity these buildings have based on their use. So the legend on the side talks about the various uses at the bottom, and then these graphs, kind of the deeper they are, they're saying this has more porosity than the more shallow ones. So that's one more thing that the students came up with themselves. And it also, when you think about the public and the private issues of porosity, access, relationality, ownership, and conflicts, all of these should come through, and that's what the analysis is then trying to represent here. Then finally, activity mapping is something that's extremely important when you think about AD in this semester. So the students go out and how people are using spaces, and if one thinks about because I think at this stage they also gain the maturity that all spaces don't function exactly the way they are meant to, right? And they don't always respond to the requirements of the people using those spaces. And so there's the idea of the lived space and the design space, and they're not necessarily the same thing. So that's something that they find out when they go and map out what nodes, what edges, what junctions, what building facades are facilitating more public life than the others, and what is it about those spaces then that facilitates that life or does not, what restricts public life versus what actually enables it. So that's the top down student observation perspective. Then you have a mapping local stories. So again, how do you spatialize the stories that come from the neighborhood? So these students talk to a lot of local residents. When they were there, they were talking to them in person. Later on, they made a lot of phone calls, not just to the locals, but some experts as well. We connected them with a lot of our own faculty, and they were kind enough to talk to them. So these maps represent that interview mapping, as it says. So the students talk to people and then spatialize that information, and that's an interesting layer too. Then you compare that with what they saw. So it's like triangulation as well. You're not only collecting information, but you're also cross-checking, you're comparing, and you're seeing if there's some validity, and you're trying to increase the rigor of your observations then. So these were the few key elements I feel are very important when you think about an architectural design project in an urban context. So very quick observations, and I'll pass it on to Archana. So first of all, I very strongly feel that this comes at the end of 7 semesters of AD, and it's a segue to thesis. So there's a lot of, in the interest of time also, there's no time, to actually rehash all the stuff that the students learned in the previous studio. So one hopes that they would actually use that knowledge without having to be nudged or reminded. Second, of course, it's a very complex and multi-layered process, and it seeks to mediate and respond to multiple scales between precinct and site, ground realities and utopian visions, public and private realms of social life. And finally, of course, the challenges, as the other presenters also mentioned, so much to do and so little time. So how do you fit in all of this in 16 weeks? And then the group work dynamics, which we all know are not very easy to deal with, and balancing the scale. So you start off at an urban level, and then you're supposed to come down to the level of a building. And as Kalpesh also mentioned, sometimes it might not be a huge building that you want there, but then that's what the brief says. So you're supposed to do it. So that is a challenge for sure. So I will stop at this point and request Archana to describe the process that she followed in her studio. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity to IUDI and KSSA. So what I'm actually going to present in this presentation is I'm going to summarize my experience, of course, with the other faculty members in the last 5 years of conducting this studio. And the second thing is, and I have summarized them as few different approaches that one can take towards formulating brief for the studio, and what is a method or process that we have followed in general. And the third one is some suggestions or highlights for the students. So I'll just begin with the process or approaches as what I'm calling them. So I'm calling them as 4 different approaches. One is precinct based, the second one is site based approach, the third is program based approach, and the fourth is theme based approach. So generally in precinct based approach, most people also do that. This is also very conventionally followed in conducting the studio, where you identify an interesting urban space, study them in districts like in Kevin Lynch's terms, identify the issues, and propose area level or structure plan intervention. Then you identify different sites. Then you come up with propose detailed architectural interventions. The second one could be site-based approach, where you identify some site to start with in an urban setting. It could be a vacant plot or an open land. Understanding the context of the site and studying various layers, and then you go and develop a program that suits this context from your own understanding of the site, and then develop architectural response, because that's kind of mandatory for this studio. The third one is program-based approach, where you start out with the program, for example, a metro station or something else that has a major impact at an urban scale. Then you find an appropriate site if it's not already there. Like for a metro station, there are sites. But if there is no site, you could probably find a site, and then you again go through a different process again, but similar steps: site analysis and architectural interventions. And the fourth approach is theme-based approach, is what I'm calling it, which is peripheral urbanism, which we try to do started out for this studio, because we thought at least in 2020 we will not be able to go to the center of the city. We thought maybe we could work with the peripheral areas of the city, but we decided on something else. I'm not going to go in detail about that. But the other themes that one could work with is green urbanism, placemaking, heritage urbanism, and things like that. What has worked for us was mostly precinct-based approach and a combination of site and program-based approach. We have tried all of these, and theme can be underlying. Sometimes theme is embedded within the program making for individual students or groups of students. And the second part of my presentation is about suggestions to the students. From my experience, I think base map is a very important drawing that we start with, where you have all the layers put in, as in just so that you can go ahead with different layers. So where you have all your roads and the building footprint, all the layers of sorry, one second. One second. One second, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, yes, that's
Visible,
it.
right?
Yes.
Hi, it's visible, right? Okay. So base map is done with all the details of the contour lines, the building layer, the vegetation as a gray line we start with, and then we develop different layers from that base map. And of course, this will need multiple visits to the site. And the second thing I want to talk about is the scale. We all know that urban design itself is not very defined in terms of the scale. There is a very generic definition that it lies between urban planning and architecture. But it's really important and good to stick to probably look at projects at different scales, one larger precinct level and maybe a site level, and then an architectural scale level. um, in my experience, we have done we have selected areas of about 3 square kilometers to something which is as small as a site. And uh, and what has worked for me was something that is in between, which is about 500 by 500 meters, makes a very very good scale to study, also identify different layers and activities on the site. Students also get a very good understanding of the place. They can talk to people. That is one scale that has really worked for us. And um, and then they can identify sites and study the surrounding areas. And the third is the architectural scale itself, which is a mandate. In fact, John Lang, in his book Urban Design Processes, and he talks about various scopes of urban design, in which he mentions large scale architectural projects also qualify as urban design projects because they have that level of complexity. So for example, again, I'm able to think of metro stations or bus stations. Doesn't have to be transportation, but something that has an impact on a larger urban scale. Um, the other thing is stakeholder connect. Of course, people have already talked about it, and it's about how do you connect with the people. We had made some interesting exercises where students would follow um, one a character, as in they would try and identify a stakeholder, and they would try and understand where they live, and they try and map in the surroundings where are the places that they go to, which was really an interesting study. And I think that helps them really understand the stakeholders, the people, their connection to the spaces that they live in. In which in one of the studios, we found out that people have two jobs, in the sense that morning they're doing something else and evening they have something like a pani puri and things like that. So we get to that level of understanding their life. And the fourth one is edge condition. For me, this studio is different. For example, if we start out with a site-based approach, this studio is different than any other studio where.
Archana, can you hear me, Archana?
Yes, sir.
Well, sorry to intervene. There are 5 schools. We are still in the third school.
Okay, so I'm done. I'm just running.
Okay, then yeah.
Okay.
I like the way you structured it.
Okay, so
nice
no
to
problem.
see that. Yeah.
Sure. And the fifth point is connecting theories that they have learned in the previous semester, which has already also been talked about. And the sixth thing that I think is important again is the structure plan itself. I have shown some of the works. I'm just running through. I'm not going to go in detail in any of these. One studio that we did in 2017, which was the study around the metro station, Yeshwanthpur metro station area, where we studied history and evolution of Yeshwanthpur. We studied the layer of land use and ownership, all these other layers like building use, age and heights, socio-economic layer, and SWOT analysis and vision plan. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salila ma'am and Archana ma'am. That was indeed a very theoretical and very structured, as Sir said, a structured presentation from your side. Now, our next presentation, I would call upon architect Shrikant KS, an assistant professor from School of Planning and Architecture, Mysuru.
Excuse me, sir. A
Yes,
quick
please.
question. I'm a student from School of Planning and Architecture.
Okay.
The previous presentation, the first part to Salila ma'am. Like how can you just give us a small brief about how the porosity mapping is done, if that is possible?
Yeah, well, porosity as in, so the students walked along the streets and actually they sketched out and they were looking at the various, how, for instance, in Jayanagar, they're trying to see, looking at the material. So some places the buildings would have glass facades, some would be more open. They might have a little more, and the depth, some would just be abutting the sidewalk. The building line would be right at the sidewalk. Some would actually have a more generous, maybe forecourt. So they looked at these various elements, and that's also for a darshini, for instance, it's more open, right? And it's not really stopping at the edge of the building. You might be able to walk a little more inside. So, and how the building also came out to the public realm, perhaps, again, taking the example of a darshini. So the students made these observations, and based on that, they mapped it then. It was the materials as well as how the spatial configuration was, the figure ground, if you want to think about it that way. So the figure ground would help them decide that too. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
There is a comment by Shreya Shetty. Creating base map takes away a lot of time. So is there no way that colleges can get the surveyor to map it and students can cross-check it, and at the same time, we as an urban designer community built on this library? So
I should actually take this, and I should actually talk to Shreya about it.
Shreya is here with us actually.
He's not there. He's not there, but it is certainly possible. One, there is ample amount of. First of all, you should realize that a class of 40 is a number, and anything is possible. Today's time, earlier we used to look at total station surveys when I started dwelling onto these larger areas. In today's time, you could even hire people with a drone and they would give you a 3D surface model of a street. And you could actually conduct your studio beyond that. That means to say that it is not only the terrain that they would map, but they could actually map the facades of building and give it to you. If that helps, yes. That's the level of technological improvement that is there. And then it should be, it is not only should be seen as a survey tool, it should also be seen as an analytical tool. So henceforth, you can pass on this information to your juniors.
No, my main comment is that we as a community can start building on this database as well. And I think that's where it would be great for students to then start looking at other aspects. We are still dwelling with the older styles, and we should now start pushing into the newer. I mean, there are good things which are old, which we should keep, but there are a lot of things which we can use and utilize the time being, one semester. So
nothing about it, in the sense that there is a madness in that method, which is there in the older system. And Satya sir is prompting that he would like to take it. And I would like to say, yes, sir.
I'm going to talk about the madness, is it? See, there are different ways of looking at. Definitely, if one can get the so-called physicality of the map by drone or whatever, please take it. But the idea of the action of creating the base map itself is a mode of learning. If you look at, I still remember the Alwar study which we did in SPA Delhi with KT and others. There was no proper, nothing much was available for Alwar back in mid-80s. They were barring some very sketchy things. And the act of developing it taught us so much about how the city evolves, how do people live, what happens to precincts, etc., etc. So it's not to say we should not take it, Shreya, we can take it, but it's also important to develop it as a part of the learning process. Just for that.
Can I just say a couple of, pitch in very quickly? I know we are short of time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, Shreya, I think I would second what Satya sir is saying, because I think especially, and we felt it this semester, the stark difference. We had the misfortunate opportunity to test that going to the site versus not going. And we found that the students were struggling to understand basic things like scale and so many things just because they didn't go and map it themselves, right? So then it just kind of percolated till the end, till the point of their designs. So yeah, it could be, it's a helpful reference thing, I guess, to have if you need it, but not, one should not, I feel that maybe the students should go ahead and do their own mapping, because that's when, as sir was saying, you get all the nuances. It's not just the act of mapping, right? You're reading so much more when you're doing that. And so I think that's very important, which they'll miss out on if we take others' data and use it. Yeah.